Greetings, errants, glitches, breakaways, thought criminals, and genuinely open-minded and outright curious inhabitants of whatever simulacrum we find ourselves navigating at the moment. You are about to set sail on another free first-hour episode of The Melt. If you find yourself wanting to dig deeper and have the desire to join the conversation during our monthly Melt meetups, you might want to consider becoming a monthly subscriber. For a measly 5 dead presidents per month, you can have access to full-length, early, and exclusive episodes. Just click the Patreon or Locals link in the episode notes below to create the timeline that will set it all in motion. It's suspiciously simple, altogether painless, and just might inspire feelings of bliss and or lingering euphoria. So, without further ado, let the conversations begin!
This is Hunter Muse.
And this is Chris Snipes, and you are listening
to The Melt.
Today we have returning guest Elisa E back to talk about her second book, Our Life Beyond MK Ultra Book 2, about surviving mind control and deprogramming from years of said experiments and coming to terms with experiences stemming from such. In it, she recounts her many encounters with demonic entities which she believes to be some of the major string pullers in these programs, her struggles to come to terms with having been a part of such programs, and all of the things that she was manipulated to carry out. I start off the conversation by asking Elisa about what black tech is, something that she mentions in her book, and what it's used for.
Black tech I would classify as the stuff that's used in the black projects and underground. In other words, the things that people don't hear about, and that the technology is more advanced than what we have on the surface, what we're all used to in society. And it can be used for a variety of things. As far as mind control goes, the old MK Ultra used it. The new MK Ultra uses it, which is more the EMK Ultra, I think, was a term that came out.
Yeah.
I know Ilana used it, but I'm not sure who brought that forward, meaning electromagnetic remote technologies. So, and the advancement of AI. In my opinion, AI is quite strong and on its way. And so when we see things in the everyday, when you're using your computer and there's algorithms that it acts up and so forth, it kind of makes me laugh because what they're using in the black tech is very far advanced as far as I can see.
Would you say 50 years, 100 years?
Yeah, I would say at least 50.
Mm-hmm.
Really, when you think about that, how fast technology progresses, to say 50 years is pretty astounding.
Yeah, for sure.
From what we've seen even just in the last decade, how fast when it hits a certain point, how fast it goes. But I know it's advanced in the black tech because of the remote things that I've experienced. They're pretty wild. And others that I know of.
How is AI employed in these programs? What does it actually set out to do?
Well, still trying to figure some of that out as far as the specifics, but my opinion is that individuals and small groups of people are run by certain systems so that your information or biometrics are loaded into the system and that there's a program that's set to run at certain times. And so I don't necessarily think that like they would target just one person, like a system would target one person, it would be targeting a whole bunch of people that are set for particular experimentation or what have you. So, because I noticed with a lot of the remote technology, what would happen is I would go through a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 months, where something was happening and then it would stop. And there might be a break. And then down the road, something else would start up. So it seems like they're doing things in a very organized fashion. I believe that there was a time, because of one experience I had, that there were individuals sitting at monitors, not the kind of monitors we think of. And I got to, in just for a split second, see that it's as though I was standing behind him briefly, I guess in the astral, and had a quick view of the monitor and what was going on. But I feel that may still be going on in some cases, but I feel like now it's pretty much all mechanics. It's all artificial intelligence in these systems, that they don't have to have physical handlers even for the remote stuff anymore. But I'm sure that applies in some cases still because of some of Robert Duncan's work about the psychic warriors, where somebody hooks in, which is what I was witnessing, was a man that was hooked into me. That was quite a few years ago. But I don't think that has to be the case anymore. I think it can be straight up machine, brain brain to computer interface.
And what are your thoughts? I mean, there's this idea that AI at some point in its self evolution can become sentient. What are your thoughts on that? I think that's kind of bullshit myself, but I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it depends on how you define sentient. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, uh, obviously, it's not going to ever have a spirit or a soul. I do believe that there will come a time that we will be in the machine. I have no doubt about that, and that we need to prep for remaining human somehow when that starts to facilitate where we are somehow in the machine. Um, so there's no spirit, no soul. But I'm wondering if the system could become so sophisticated and learn so well that it could mimic sentience. Like, in other words, if there's enough data and responses that have gone into the system, could it appear to be sentient? I don't know.
Yeah, just a very sophisticated imitation of sentience.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're there already. I think that that's what's happening in social media. I think that there's some
Mm,
experimentation that's been done with artificial intelligence uh, as a as an app or applying it as an app, but it's just basically taking all of this data and then designing what they might consider like a consumer would respond most to this. And a lot of these women, for example, that they're using that are bots are more successful than, someone that's a real celebrity in quotes. So
sure.
I think that these things are being folded into the algorithm right now. And it's really about if people are aware that who they are communicating with is AI and not a real sentient being.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And, when we start looking at things like D-Wave computer, um, uh, the idea that, I mean, there's something else going on there. And I don't know that it's so much would be the machine that becomes sentient as much as my view of it is that the technology is infiltrated by entities. And when you look at D-Wave and some of the stuff that came out about that, and even Gordy Rose saying, it was like standing next to an altar to an alien god.
Hmm.
That was a quote.
Mhm.
And this is a guy who's developing this stuff and working with this stuff. And the fact that it's, for example, that computer has to be kept at insane cold temperatures. That kind of, for me, in my anthroposophical studies, that kind of suggests Ahrimanic and Asuric beings, entering. And it's really interesting because, what was it? Gosh, it's been over a dozen years now when I first started what I call deep deprogramming. And one of the things I said, which is in some of my collage work, is they're writing the technology into us. And that was like almost frantic for a part of me that wanted that people to understand. They're writing the technology into us, and the other piece to that was they're coming for all of you, not just people like me. And this is how it's going to happen. One day you'll get up and you'll go about your day as normal, and you won't know that you lost free will. You won't know that you're in the system. It will seem like just any other day. So it's not going to be something where people are going to go, oh my God, I'm being, mixed up with this machinery. I really believe that somehow, and I can't explain how that's going to happen, but that was the second piece to it was it's not going to be something that's conscious. And if we look around, we have people, I believe, all over the place. I encounter them, my friends encounter them that are in the tech, their whole existence is
Absolutely.
in the tech. And so it's not really a big jump, I don't think, um, if they're not able to recognize what's going on and understand what that technology is and what it's capable of. And if they don't have any inner life, um, how do they get out of that? And this does fit into some of my anthroposophical studies of what is being planned and has been for a long time by some of these very high level beings. Um, Basically, something that's like a virtual world where they can capture souls and spirits. And so, when I encounter people who are constantly texting and on their phone, I notice like anywhere I go, if they have to wait for 2 minutes, the phone is whipped out.
Hmm.
It's like it's impossible for someone to just take in their surroundings. They need that interaction, and a lot of times it just feels like nobody's home when
Hmm.
you encounter them. Energetically, it just feels like you're not interacting. They're not interacting, or there's no eye contact. So that idea that people can be pulled in and not know that they've been pulled in makes a lot of sense to me.
Do you think that that's possible for people who are much more in touch and sensitive to their surroundings and what's going on inside of them?
Um, I think this is really a spiritual war. So I know people who consider themselves spiritual, and they're gone off a little bit. So I don't know what the qualification is there. Um, I know what it is for me and some of the people I know, but I believe it's going to, based on some of my studies, it's going to get harder and harder to remain human. Like some people think it's challenging now. And I kind of chuckle. It's like, you have no idea. We've barely gotten started. And I know that's like, the glass is half full, but it's not. I haven't lost faith or um, the feeling that this is an incredible time to be alive and there's an opportunity here. And we all chose to be here at this time, to participate in this, whether we go that way or go that way. But I do believe from what I've seen and what I've studied subsequently that it is going to get a lot harder. And I'm talking over hundreds, if not thousands of years. I'm talking about successive lifetimes. It's going to get harder and harder to remain human. It's not going to be this when I come back the next time. It's, the pine trees and the beautiful mountains, and the beautiful streams. It's not going to be that when I come back next time. We're going to be in it
Well,
at some point.
there's the idea of yugas in Hinduism, I believe, and everything, nature, first and foremost, is cyclical. So, yes, maybe these things that you're talking about are coming, and maybe there's not a whole lot we can do about them except be as present in our place within that context as we can. But doesn't this, the only thing constant is change. Won't that then evolve and perhaps the pendulum will start swinging the opposite direction or a completely different direction?
Can I break in here for
Absolutely,
a second?
yeah.
So one thing that I've noticed, if you kind of consider the chronology of our technology and how it has evolved, I don't know if you remember the congressional hearings with Mark Zuckerberg 10 years ago or so, where
Was it not long ago? Oh my
it's been
God.
about that. Well, he's been in front of Congress more than once.
Okay.
The time I'm talking about was a congressman said, I will be out in the world and I'll look at my phone and, I will have walked by or driven by a Walmart and suddenly there'll be an ad on my phone from Walmart. Like, how is that? Why is that happening? Well, I don't know if you remember this, but Zuckerberg refused to answer the question. He refused to answer how that was happening or what was happening. I think it's come to light that the devices that we are using are listening devices, obviously. I think where we have gone way beyond this point that we're discussing right now is now it's not about you drove by and your phone picked up the Walmart signal. Now it's you thought about Walmart and it's picking up your thought. So I think we've gone way beyond this technology of just needing to have the device, a wearable, and then you're out in the world and that wearable is responding. Now, this nanotechnology has been implanted via geoengineering, the jab, however, it has been installed in the human being. And now we are already part of the machine. So for me, this is not something that's happening in the future. This is something that we are embedded in right now. I think the soft disclosure is that people slowly started to talk about this 40, 50 years ago when they were talking about RFID chips being implanted. And that was the mark of the beast in this fear campaign. So I think that's the direction people thought it was going to go in. And what came in through the back door was the nanotech of the phone and these other devices. So I feel like we're already in it.
Absolutely. It's not a future thing. And I would agree with you 100%. It's like the equivalent, but the phone and the tech can access what's in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a listening device, it's coming through to you. They can send anything they want. So I absolutely agree with you. And I remember experiencing and talking about nanobots
Mm-hmm.
when nobody wanted to talk about nanobots. It's like, no shit in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a something this big. You can't see it. unless it's highly magnified. So I absolutely agree with you. And it's not a future thing. We're there. You're absolutely right. And are you familiar with Sabrina Wallace?
Yes.
Funny
Yes,
you should
we've-
ask. Yeah.
She's spot on. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but she is spot on. The W band, the wide body area network,
Mhm.
and our subtle bodies. And this is what you're absolutely right. This is what's happening, which is what the chemtrails have been for decades, is putting it in everything. Not, it's in our water, it's in our air, it's on our food. And I eat organic, but I joke with, take your little 60-time microscope to the organic section, produce section, and have a look at the tomatoes and and they're just covered in nanotech.
Mhm.
I mean, but at least we're not dealing still with the fertilizers and, but I don't know how long that's going to last, you know. I think everything like that is on its way out. And as regards the cycles, it's absolutely true. And in my studies, it's about different epochs. And what happens at the end of each epoch is something that brings a very small portion of humanity forward.
Mm.
The rest are gone. And this has happened over and over. And those that go forward begin the next civilizations. So I'm absolutely in agreement. And this process, from my understanding, this has to happen because we have sunk so far into materialism. We have sunk so far away from spirit, which we needed to do to individualize ourselves, to become truly individual, separated from the gods. And now we need to take our individuality and find our way back to that spirit world. And so I see, we can present the information until we're blue in the face, but until it becomes personal, they're not really looking for it. They're still making a living. They get to go on vacation. Nobody's terribly sick in their family. I mean, what's the motivation to get up one day and say, I really want to know the truth of what our past is, our present is, and our future. So I see there's a benefit to this. This is the way it has to play out. And as far as technology, in spiritual science, there's something called moral technology.
Mhm.
And it's completely different than anything. I won't try to go into explaining it, but it's completely different than anything that we currently have. It's not run by plugging it into a wall and turning on the Wi-Fi. It's run through the etheric body of the person that is engaging it. And if you are of ill intent, it doesn't work. So, these kinds of things were supposed to already be in development in this past century. And I won't go into, there were some people working on this. We don't really know. They took out the leader about 10 years ago. But we suspect that the group maybe is able to, I don't know, nobody can find out. So there's, it's not like, are we going to go forward in a good way or are we going to go forward in a bad way?
Mhm.
We're going to go forward in both,
Mhm.
and I understand it as there will be a massive split in humanity over a long, long period of time. And in my opinion, that's already started. But the good news is with reincarnation,
Mhm.
seeds can be planted for the worst of the worst.
Sure.
Seriously. And Steiner talks about absolutely like those now that we considered murderers and procurers of genocide,
Mhm.
and still turn it around down the road. This is possible. So it's a long war. It's not happening in the next couple of decades. Um, we've got a long way to go. And my way of seeing it is that in the spirit world and those that are working at truly being connected to that and having this symbiotic relationship, They depend on us. We depend on them. Um, we need to be doing that, but what's going on the surface in society, we're going to go down much farther. There's not, to me, there's not this. That's my understanding is, and I mean, it's visible and it's happening. It's happening in a pretty quick rate, so, but there's a purpose to that. There's a purpose to that, to wake up a lot of people and give them the opportunity to choose. This is like the beginning of moving into the getting to choose between good and evil, which path you want to be on. And a lot of people are still asleep. They may not do it in this incarnation, and they may not do it to the next one or the one after, or we've that's not to say be complacent, because I do believe for myself that what I do now is I'm actually preparing for what's coming, because when I come in next time, I will be in it, and I need to be able to carry over what I understand from this incarnation. And I think that's the gift of this incarnation, is we're being exposed to things. We're being exposed to evil. It's visible.
So that
And
brings, I'm
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but that brings up a
no,
really good point that I have been very curious about all these people who are pro the jab, and people who have had really, really serious side effects, maybe lost family members or loved ones, and those people that let's say believe, because it does feel like a religion. Those people who believed in the science and followed the science, in quotes, and then were injured or died. Now there's that spirit. So here's this spirit who, for all intents and purposes, had pure intentions to do the right thing, and then was basically duped into taking this toxin. Now, is that spirit evolving, and is that spirit helping this process along to maybe reposition everything, that, like, so there's so many people that have died. Didn't those people figure out what happened once they died? Like, are they on our side
um,
now?
I
There are no sides.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, the way I see it is that that kind of work is done here,
Right.
not on the other side. I mean, this is the gift of this. This is where we get shit done,
Mm-hmm.
personally and as a karmic society of humanity. So there's a very interesting book out, came out, I think, last year or maybe the year before. And to me, this is spot on. Not that I agree with absolutely every opinion in the book, but by Thomas Mayer,
I knew you were going to
and
say that book.
it's the consequences of,
Yeah.
you know, and I, as a person who has dealt directly with entities, I think he's really spot on. I think it's not just him, what all these practitioners experience, because some of them didn't even know that they were working on a vaccinated person,
Mm-hmm.
and what they saw and felt
Yeah.
surprised them, and then they found out, that the person had been vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that um, they may be able on the other side, depending on what spirits they're with over there, and depending on, like in the book, people here that are attempting to work with the people that have passed and are under this darkness and spell. So I don't think it's a lost cause. Plus, we have to factor in karma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my understanding is that really predominantly what we go through in this incarnation is everything from the past, not about this one.
Right.
What's happening now will be the next
Yes.
time around.
Yes.
So, and I've had to go through some quite a few recent health issues, and I'm in that process of really studying in spiritual science about karma, because I'm trying to determine how to flow with this so that I don't have to do it all over again, next time. I don't want to resist it. I want to learn how to just be with whatever my karma is. So those people, I know there that karma can be hijacked, or
Mm.
maybe not hijacked. It can be almost as if it's set aside under certain circumstances, and then that will have to be dealt with down the road.
Mm.
Like it doesn't get the opportunity to be worked out
Mhm.
because something else interferes. I have heard of this. So I think there are so many factors factoring into this. But this this jab and this whole agenda is, I mean, if you think about it, this is like a global genocide. I mean, maybe not genocide, but global murder.
Yeah.
This is on a massive scale. This is astounding. The closest thing I can see is, of course, I know this has happened in other countries prior to the pandemic, but I mean, as far as in the U.S., 9/11 was shocking for us. And now look at the numbers that we're dealing with. I mean, there's definitely a progression here. So I think I have a lot to learn about on a worldwide scale about spirituality and um, the difference between individual karma and human karma, meaning we're all, we have that aspect too, that we're all in a karmic cycle as a species
Mhm.
and on Earth. So,
And then there's generational karma for
yes,
groups.
yes. Yeah, people come in groups at different times. We're all in. This isn't the first time we were together, and it
Mhm.
won't be, we'll be doing it again. I do understand that we come in at certain times, and we can't interact with the people of the 17th century unless we're a speedy recycler. And my understanding is it's not that speedy,
Mm.
unless there's other circumstances, which we could get into black magic or into white magic, where a lot of adepts and initiates can recycle very quickly
Mhm.
if they need to, if they
Yeah.
want to. And I also believe that happens for sure on the black magic side as well, where souls and spirits are captured and recycled more quickly. So,
It's funny when
oh,
people say, I've never been part of a project." I always say, "Well, if you have been alive for the past 60 years, you've been part of a project, you just didn't realize it."
that's right. That's right. For sure.
I think sometimes the problem that I have, or the thing that snags me when we talk about inevitabilities, things that are happening that it seems like we have no control over them, and we just have to just weather it out the best that we can, is that I perceive things as constantly evolving, and that awareness plays a huge role in all of this. Where we're at mentally and spiritually may have more of an effect than where things are physically. So I mean, I think maybe the problem is that there are so many different fragmented awarenesses that they have a hard time working in concert. But the more that we learn about these things and the more that we educate ourselves, it seems like even just the mere fact of that, where we decide to turn our attention and to
Yeah,
pour our energy into, we are we are therefore changing the future just by doing that in some incremental way. What do you feel about
I
that?
agree totally. Yeah, I do. And it's not just actions, it's thoughts. I
For
mean,
sure.
and it's something really interesting that I learned in spiritual science was the effect that a lie in the spirit world is unreal. How powerful, i- destructively powerful it is in the spiritual world, and or the fact of half truths. are far more destructive than full out lies, because a half truth is very difficult to prove that it's a half truth.
Hmm.
And if you look at our society, I mean, people are always getting confused because this makes sense, but they're taking it in the wrong direction. There's always partial truths in things, if you see in disinformation or misinformation. And so we really are living in a society of half truths. I mean, on a pretty amazing scale right now. I mean, go online, you know. So I absolutely agree, um, that thoughts are every bit as important as actions. And I'm also humble enough to see what a long way I have to go with that. I mean, I see it every day, me judging or, you know, being angry and unfortunately or fortunately, I'm learning the power that has in the spirit world. And
Hmm.
it hurts when I see myself doing it. My heart actually hurts because I know what I'm doing. And an interesting aspect of karma will be eventually, as we evolve, our karma will be immediate. And when we go to do something that's inappropriate or wrong, we will see, we will get an image of what the consequence is before we even do it. And it's like, yeah, bring that on, would you? Right? But I'm already starting to feel myself, the little things I do that I know aren't completely on the up and up. You know, just little stuff, but learning that that has such a power in the spiritual world. So I mean, it's not that I think, well, let's see, I'll put it this way. I feel like there's a human destiny, and that so there's a path that we are going down. And yes, we can affect things along the way, but this is necessary for the best to come out in us. That's how I see it. Like if if you don't suffer and you are good, it's just this kind of good. But if you deep down into evil and you are able to come, I get goosebumps, you're able to come out of that evil, then your good is really good.
It's tempered.
And I do believe that matters, that there's kind of this scale of what we're exposed to and how, if you can turn it around. And I have a lot of faith in that personally, for myself and for many, many, many people. I believe that is the course that we're on so that we can reach that greater degree of good and move into this magnificent brotherhood that right now, I mean, it's so easy for people to be happy while a shitload of people are suffering. That's the truth. So I look at it as, where is kind of this overview of consciousness where we're at. And it doesn't depress me or put me in despair or any of that. I know this is part of the path. This is what we're supposed to do. But imagine a time and imagine a time where no one could be happy if even one person was subjected to evil or suffering or in pain. That if you came upon that person, it is your responsibility through your powers to assist them, because you won't be happy. No one will be happy until that. I mean, that's so when I can look at because I believe that's coming way down the road. So when I look at that, that's my gauge of being able to see where we are and the span between here and there. And it can happen, it can happen. Um, it's not like there's a requirement of how many years, but what are the circumstances? What is the environment going to require for us to move that way while on Earth? In other words, while between birth and death, or before you cross this threshold, because this is where it's done, right? This is where we get it done. So that gives me, believe it or not, even though I have a very strong sense, maybe some of it's based on where I come from, and then understanding the studies of where we're headed, what we'll have to go through before we can move into that degree of our evolution. I have a tremendous amount of faith, and I see it as an opportunity. I mean, there's always going to be suffering here until we, this is it. I mean, this is where the pain and suffering happens, and there's a reason for it. I'm not a believer in, you know, exiting life and being in bliss. I'm a believer in being completely immersed, completely involved, and taking whatever suffering or pain you have to deal with. That is the path here while on Earth.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's just, yeah, it's the trick of material existence, I think, is it's easy to get solidified into duality and thinking that there are two sides, um, and being tricked by the distractions that just material reality in and of itself can present. I think that's where science, for instance, has lost its way, is thinking that, that is all there is. So they're stuck there. At least that's what they'd like us to think. I probably, they know very well that there's a lot more than that, but they're not letting us know.
But I think that's only one part of it.
Of course.
I think the fragmentation has come from the communal living that we need. I think because we're not living in pan-generational homes, we're not taking the lessons from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and passing those on to our children. So we live in this very fragmented world where you believe your suffering is the only suffering
Mm.
because you haven't talked to your grandmother, you haven't talked to your great grandfather, you don't know your family's personal history, so you can't look at that objectively and have some form of subjective understanding of where you fit into that. So I think that has way more to do than scientism or anything like that. I think the fragmentation has come internally because it is a spiritual battle. So what do we want to do? We want to break up the family. We want to break up these units of cohesion that people have generationally and genetically. And I think that that's what's fucked us. So the overarching thing that has to happen is a communal evolution. It has to be that we all rise up. And the only way that can happen is if we have an understanding of the how unified we all are. And we don't see ourselves as individuated. We see ourselves as part of something that is larger and more important.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And looking at what the level they've taken it to, not only removing family, removing gender.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a big one.
No shit.
I mean, just the implications of the sacred feminine, being dissolved, um, that a man can have a baby. Wow. I mean, we're really, so I do believe that there is a proper evolution through that will take much time, will evolve physically, spiritually. But we're in the faint version now.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the version that's the globalist agenda of removing these things, removing our history. I mean, talk to someone 30 years old or less, and they don't know the stuff you know.
Yeah.
They don't remember the stuff you remember. You know,
You're
the
right.
history being removed and changed, the family being removed. Um, the true, for me, the true Christianity, the esoteric Christianity, which isn't the religious Christianity, that has long ago been subsumed. Um, and even what, not even 10 years ago, I said the time is coming really soon when it'll be subversive to talk about Christ in the sense of the true occult esoteric teaching, which I find in spiritual science. And I see that happening in the religious sector already. The religious version of it, that the newer generations think that's just, that's old news. And I believe that not believe, I have to say I know this piece, that there's that Luciferic energy, that's that Ahrimanic energy. There's also the Asuric, who's working through those two. But that middle way is what that Christ was really about, is balancing those other energies out. It's not, like you said, it's not about, just black and white, good and evil, or maybe the more religious view of annihilating evil or denying evil, or it's about having to bring it in balance. That Ahrimanic, that Luciferic and Ahrimanic are part of our earth realm. That's part of what needs to be brought back into balance. They're part of this existence. It's not something that we're going to annihilate or remove from this. We have to bring it back in balance. So, but for me, it's the occult version of Christianity, which is to me the true version of what that was all about, and what that offers to us today and in the future. What came to, and what was really brought was completely misinterpreted. The Bible was misinterpreted. What's there is occult language and code.
Yeah,
and it tells the entire past, present, and future. If you have the ability to understand that, and Rudolf Steiner was one of the people that brought those truths forward, which is why they poisoned him and took him out.
It's true. I think that part of this fragmentation that we're talking about, what I've noticed in academia, is that in my experience, I had a 30-year-old teacher that was teaching me about crime and deviance throughout our history. And when we got to the Unabomber, and I said to her, "Did you know that the Unabomber was involved in the MK Ultra mind control program?" And she said, "What is the MK Ultra mind control program?" And I just thought, this is what's so interesting about this, is that we have taken generations and bifurcated and fragmented and separated them because we want cultural amnesia. We don't want people to remember our recent history or our ancient history, because then we can rewrite it and we can modify it and we can change it and we can omit the things that aren't convenient for whatever the narrative that we are trying to push is. And so that's kind of an interesting aspect to this, is that it's not that these people are willfully ignorant. It's that they've been placed in a system that has been told to them, this is the curriculum. This is what we're interested in you perpetuating. This is the data we want you to perpetuate. Now just do that. And if you get a group of students who just want grades, they're not going to question outside of those lines that they're supposed to color within. So you get a nearly 60-year-old woman in that situation and have a dialogue with someone who has that data or that information. It completely changes that atmosphere and that ecosystem. And I think that we need more of that. So we need more Elisas, more Hunters, more Chris's in academia in these settings, because there are people who are hungry for the information. They just don't know where to get it.
Agreed. And willful ignorance to me is when they're presented with information and they avoid it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, for her to say, what is MK Ultra? I mean, think about how available that is.
Yeah.
That information, but she still hasn't found her way to it.
And this is someone on a PhD track.
Right. Well, that yeah.
In psychology.
Yeah. Well, to me, that is the barrier. That track can be the barrier.
Wasn't there
that will prevent people from
a recent film that just came out within the last couple of years called MK Ultra?
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yes.
What
Um, Anson Mount played the lead, I believe.
what
Uh,
kind of take was that?
well, I mean, it's it was very it stuck to the material they wanted us to know. That, but I did find it interesting how it played out and how he wound up murdering. Um, and I'm sure that that took place where people just went off,
Hmm.
you know. But it was done. I thought it was done well for that segment of the MK Ultra story, but it was very limited, of course. The only way they seem to be able to uh, really get into AI or mind control is more of they have to do the real Hollywoodized
Yeah,
versions,
yeah.
but they're doing it.
Well,
It's been going on for a long time. I mean, what was that Gina Davis movie? Do you remember that? Years ago.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They
I know.
broke up.
Yes. I know the one you're talking about. And then,
I can't remember the title, but I mean that was a long time ago.
yeah, then
You know, yep,
conspiracy theory with
Mel
Mel
Gibson.
Gibson and
yep.
Julia Roberts.
So they've been dropping it in, but if you Hollywoodize it enough, and there's that desensitization aspect where
Yes.
over several decades they can really get people used to the idea of it's just the movies.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just the movies.
That's
So
why I asked about that film, just to see what context that subject matter was brought up in, because that's most of the time it's very dismissive. Like it's like an
yeah,
X-Files episode. Like, yeah, that's bullshit. Like that didn't
yeah,
really happen. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
No, that one was done a little differently, wasn't it? It really was. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
see the movie myself. That's why I was
Oh,
asking.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Yeah.
want to check it out.
I think this is the one about using the drugs and so forth on people and experimenting. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, they did it. It was a little different than some of the really flashy, um, you know, the movies, the Hollywood versions where the audience actually wants to be the person.
Mm,
Yeah.
That's the real Hollywoodized version. Someone's being tortured, but hey, they're pretty fucking cool.
yeah,
And
like the Born Identity series is an
yes,
MK Ultra series.
yeah.
We recently had somebody on that did a very deep dive, like a 6+ hour deep dive on YouTube, about Donald Marshall and the cloning centers.
Oh,
Are you familiar with that?
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I'm familiar with Donald Marshall and the cloning centers. I didn't know somebody did a 6-hour deal on it.
Yes, we had her on and she really did a fantastic job. But what is your experience, or what is your knowledge having to do with the cloning centers and their purpose?
I absolutely believe they exist. Um, I don't know if you were familiar with Fritz Springmeier and Cisco Wheeler years ago, but when she came out, she was raised bloodline family and raised as a programmer,
Hmm.
and she talked about cloning centers. This was like several decades ago, and that they were real, and she had encountered them and been in them and so forth. Um, I look at I generally don't try to talk about other M filters publicly, but I will say this that I see Donald Marshall as the real deal, and he's used as a limited hangout.
Mm,
And he's made to look, you know, off key. He can discredit himself. I did get his book, and it tends to rant in there.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the reason I see it that way, in truth, I looked pretty wild when I first came out too. You've got alters coming forward, you got child alters coming forward, you got um, you're up and down moods, you're depressed, you're suicidal. The next day you're, high as can be. Um, I'm not surprised that he he brought the information forward in the fashion that works. It works a couple of ways, releasing the information, and making it look just enough off key that most people will find it fascinating to listen to, but they don't really believe it.
Mhm.
They don't really even go that far. Why would they? Um, Kind of like some of the Hollywood people that have come forward and spoken about it. I have absolutely no question whatsoever that human cloning is alive and well and has been for a very long time. And I feel like Dolly the sheep was kind of um, the the message to those in the know. If that was one of the messages, the drop of where we're at and making that public. Um, I, as you know, in my book, speak to my own clones, about how that came about for me. Um, and I know another woman. I never met her personally, but the men I worked with her prior to me, and they spoke about her clones and having encountered them, and specifically what was different as opposed to just an altar showing up. And so I have altars, but were and possibly still are, I don't know, other versions of me. And yeah, that's that's how I feel about that. I feel like it's been publicized enough in a certain way that it's working as a limited hangout, and nobody in the normal version of society, nobody's really going to take it seriously.
Of course, yeah. Do you think that's mostly that whole industry is mainly for entertainment purposes for
You mean like the cloning centers and how
yes.
people are used?
Yeah, and what they do with the clones.
Um, I think it has a lot of uses,
Mhm.
actually. I don't know if I've never been to what is described as the entertainment version. Never been to anything like that.
Gotcha.
My, I mean, if any of mine were used that way, I'm completely unaware of it. Um, Mine were younger versions of me that looked exactly like me, at that age, and Um, were being used in an aspect like maybe I had an alter of that or one of two alters that had those personality traits, but that's what that person was. That's what that clone was, that and nothing else. That was the only one that I actually, not physically encountered, but encountered very, oh gosh, I don't even know. I don't really know how to explain it, but I made a connection to her visually in my mind's eye and very briefly. And she seemed to respond as in she felt that connection, but I don't think she understood what it was. And after that, I was made aware, of how many there were at that time. I don't know that if there are any or any's alive or if they've made any more. I don't know any of that. It's as though I'm not connected to that anymore. But I have an alter memory, that I recovered in early programming, and it was me and Alter engaging in a hotel room, another me. And initially, I assumed it was an alter, but I always said, "There's something different with this." um, in this memory, there's something I don't know what this is. Who that is, can't figure. It doesn't feel like the other alters. It took me a long time to realize that that was a case where I had encountered another version of me, and there was a purpose why we were being brought together. But that's the only memory I have of the physical encounter.
Um, and I was surprised to come across John Lilly and John Lilly's research in your book, and how that may have had something to do with a power that one of your alters was trained to do. Do I have that correct?
Right. Yeah. 12 years old, birthday party. The film that was done about him with George C. Scott. That would have been, I think it was 1972, if I remember correctly. Anyway, that whole storyline was part of that birthday celebration, and seeing that movie was part of programming for, and it was just based on John Lilly's work. I don't know John Lilly. I don't know that I ever encountered him. I think the film was used in the programming of that altar, and the film was based on his work with the dolphins and so forth. I did get many years ago in early deprogramming, I printed out his metaprogramming information. It was a ton of information. I don't know that I ever completely got through it, but my feeling at the end of that was him, like many others, were financially supported in their work, and that he and many others in that kind of same genre, same time, accepted that money, and they knew darn well where it was coming from.
Hmm.
And, you know, uh, they want to play innocent, that they were just wanting to do their work. And I mean, I get that, but that's some level of complicity as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think his name is on Graham Hancock's list of MK Ultra, um, not participants, but I think researchers.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like it to me. And who knows how much they knew, but they knew that what they were doing was, and they're getting funding, that it's going to be used for some nefarious. You have to be a complete idiot, and I just don't buy that story. So yeah,
It has been so awesome to talk to you again, Elisa. Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for being on the show.
Absolutely.
And we didn't get to not even a third of Chris's questions as usual.
Yeah, which is totally fine, because I
Well,
couldn't. I
I
couldn't
would
have.
like to plug something if I
Yeah,
can.
please do.
I have started a fund, although we don't have any money yet,
Okay.
for survivors of MK Ultra, SRA, and even targeted individuals. We do have a website, unitedintentions.org. I do have a notice up, unfortunately, on the survivor page that we can't pay anybody right now. We're still waiting to get started.
Mhm.
I guess it's a slow process. We did get 7 people paid, and then we're out of money. So, but I want to encourage people to go there. There is on the survivors page, there's some resources and practitioners, and we're constantly trying to add safely to the resource list. So it's a slow process. And Tim Ray is the person that I started this with. He's been a researcher and radio host for years. He has what is unitedmedia.org. Is that unitedmedia.org? And does Frequency Wars, and has done other shows in the past. And so he and I are in on this together. And I just encourage people, if you're able to donate, people are vetted. It's a one-time thing for them. Sometimes it's a help with rent or car payment, or whatever they need to use the money for. It's up to them. We do leave it up to them to use it however they choose. So it feels really good, and we're kind of realizing this kind of thing doesn't just take off right from the beginning.
Sure.
A friend of
Sure.
mine said, "Oh, that takes 3 years." So we hope it doesn't take that long. But if anybody's willing to donate, or if you need to find some resources, we are, like I said, building that up slowly. So go to that page, and there may be some help to be found there. And
Fantastic.
even to connect you maybe with some other people. We've found some organizations, like one in LA, that's for targeted individuals. Matter of fact, we had the 2 guys on, interviewed them, and they have like a network going, and they have more resources, they have connections, and they know where to send people or how to help them out a little bit. So
Fantastic.
very excited about that.
Cool. That sounds great.
Awesome.
Is there any place that you would like to direct people if they want to find out more about you and your work?
Well, you mean for information or?
Sure. I don't if you
Yeah,
have a website or a blog or a place to get
I
your
do have
books.
a WordPress site,
Okay.
and I'll send you the link. It's
Yeah, yeah.
ourlifebeyondincultura.wordpress.com.
Okay.
I've been a little lax over the last couple of years of updating, but I've started doing that again. But there's a lot of free information on there, and all the 36 color collages are on that site, so you can look at
Fantastic.
those without having to buy the book if you want to see them. And then,
Cool.
of course, the book, Logo Sophia. Is it .org or .com?
That's a
Oh
good
my gosh.
question. Let me look. I have the book right here. And it doesn't have the website address on there.
I'm gonna
But this
I
is the
just
book.
sent it to you, but I always have trouble with .org or .com. Here we
Yes,
go.
I do too.
It's
.com.
thank you.
Yes. LogosophiaBooks.com. Yes.
Thank you. Logo
Cool.
Sophia, yeah. They're awesome. You
And it's
probably know them.
yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah. Great couple.
Yeah, really
And a
sweet people.
small publisher. So, if anybody does want the book, I ask that you go to them instead of like Amazon.
Yeah,
Help
for
them
sure.
out. So
Yeah. And they do really quality work too. The
they
books look
do.
amazing. Yeah. Especially the recent one that came out with both of your book 1 and 2, and it has the collages that you did in color. That's an
Oh,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah. That was so nice. I mean, it finally, the first two books did not feel completed. It was like a
Mhm.
rush job to get them out and keep me safe and all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
this with them is exactly, I couldn't have asked for it any better than that. So, and it
Fantastic.
is the 2 books in one. So with lots of updates. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, excellent.
Great.
I highly recommend it for anybody that's
Thank you.
listening or watching. Elisa, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us. And we'd love to have you on again because there's always lots of deep diving to do. And like Hunter
Great.
said, we've just barely begun on our list of questions. But where conversations go organically is always much more interesting
Yeah,
than any question list I could ever come up with. So yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you could just leave your browser window open for, just to make sure it's all uploaded, that would be
Got it.
fantastic.
Last time I cut you off.
Oh, no big deal. It
I
happens.
forgot. And then later, it was like, I think it was like a couple hours later. Oh my God.
It's always retrievable. So yeah, it's
Great.
it's no big deal. All right.
Thank you.
Elisa, yes. Thank
Appreciate
you so
both.
much.
Thanks for the work you do.
Oh,
Thank you.
likewise. Yes.
Awesome.
And we look forward to having you on again.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Many blessings.
You too.
Hello.
Hi. That was a very fantastic conversation. Once again, Elisa's a really wonderful person.
She is a wonderful person.
Yeah. And I'm going to carry the beginning of this, aren't I? Because you are tired. That's okay.
I'm trying to get back into shape. Walked yesterday and today. I'm a little bit out of it. But we had a wonderful talk with Elisa.
We did. You really
We
can't.
have to do this quickly.
You really can't quell the yawns for a few minutes. You didn't do it all throughout the conversation.
Because I was riveted.
Okay.
And
I'm just boring as fuck.
not breathing. No, I was kind of
just
holding
kidding.
my breath.
Anyway,
Please.
fantastic to catch up with Elisa again. And her book is really incredible. I highly recommend it. Not very light reading by any means, but it shouldn't be because it's about some pretty intense experiences that she has had with MK Ultra and all the madness that goes along with that. You have nothing to add to this conversation, do you? Well, then add.
I do. I said it was wonderful.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for listening. This is as far as we're going to get on this, I guess. But, it's been a while since we've done any interviews.
And we have missed you.
Hunter was finishing up school. That's why she hasn't been on some of the episodes recently. Well, it probably won't be recently by the time that this comes out. But and so, yes, she's still getting in the groove of being a functioning human being. And getting back into shape and all of that stuff. So I'm going to keep this short. Thank you all so very much for listening. I apologize to those of you who actually look forward to this part of the show because it's pretty non-existent this time around.
Oh, come on.
But we appreciate you listening, and go to the links and follow Elisa's work. She's really a warrior in many ways. So.
Yeah, she told some cool stories there.
Mm-hmm.
I liked when we went to places that are intense like that.
Yeah, she's been through a lot, and still she was talking about the person that she wishes to remain unnamed. We've had him on the show. You guys can probably figure it out. Being resilient and still being a bright, shining spirit, but it takes one to know one. She's one herself. She's come out of all of this dark, dark stuff, a bright, shining spirit herself, and that is an inspiration. So it's great to be in the presence of that and to have a conversation with somebody who has come through it and for the better, I believe.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this nomadic existence that she is living under right now, and I have done that throughout my entire life at one point or the other. And it's a very strange way to live in the world. It's easy to feel very disconnected to the world when you're kind of floating between lots of different places. And I think there's a lot of great things about that because it takes you out of the matrix in a sense, and it gives you some perspective and some distance so you can see things a little bit, maybe with some more clarity. But it can also be lonely and disconnecting and discombobulating, and you can kind of feel very nomadic. And I just hope that she has a place to ground, and that she has people around her that she loves and trusts and that she cares about that can help her to kind of maintain her own individual personal center. Because I think that's what a home does, is that it kind of helps you to have some sense of belonging or security or connectedness. And I want to make sure she feels connected because it's so very important.
Yes. And the person that she was bringing up and was talking about, who was left alone the first 10 days after being born in the hospital, who was on with Alana Freeland at one point on this podcast. Also,
who was taken.
Yes. What did I say?
You said left alone
the
first 10 days of his life.
Gotcha. Yeah, left alone out in the hospital room, an empty hospital room. Also lives that existence too. It's, I would imagine, a very lonely road. Maybe, hopefully, less lonely in the age of being able to connect via things like shows like this or the internet. But yeah, you just don't encounter very many people who maybe have not only not had these experiences, but maybe have had them and don't speak of them, or don't know how to speak to them, or don't know who to speak to about it without the fear of being labeled as crazy or being thrown into a fucking mental institution. So I would imagine it's a lonely road to walk. But I don't wish that upon Elisa or the other person mentioned. I hope that they, as you said, they do have a network of people that they can look to and that support them and are there holding space for them. We certainly do.
Yep.
On that note, it's been a long day. We're going to close it up now. Thank you all so very much for getting this far. We very much appreciate your attention, and hopefully you were able to glean something positive from this. We certainly did. Elisa is a very positive person, especially in the light of the context of the things that she's gone through. If you would like to contact us to recommend guests, suggestions, critiques, recipes, whatever, you can contact us at the Melt Podcast at protonmail.com, or what's your name?
Hunter-Muse at protonmail.com.
It's good to be back. It's been quite a hiatus. It won't probably seem that way to you since the episodes at this point will have come on. I've changed my whole mode of doing this, so I don't know what the mode will be by the time that this comes out, but hopefully it'll be by the end of the year. It will be by the end of the year. But thank you so much for listening. And again, we have fantastic things in the works, and then we're going to take the summer off of doing interviews and just live a little bit. So, and hopefully travel a little bit too. So much love to you all. And yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for making it this far. If you've liked what you've heard and are thus inspired to contribute to the well-being of the Melt, there are a few easy ways to do that. The most tangible being financially, which can be achieved by clicking the Locals or Patreon link in the episode notes, and then you will be led through the process of starting your monthly subscription for a mere $5 a month. This will give you access to exclusive episodes, full-length episodes, and you can participate in our monthly Melt meetups, where we can congregate together as a community and often get a chance to chat with some of our guests more intimately. Another way to help out would be to go to wherever it is that you listen to the Melt and leave a favorable review or rating. You can also spread the word via sharing or recommendation to friends and family, either in person or virtually. And lastly, if none of those options are readily available or appealing to you, simply send your positive thoughts and intentions. In an interconnected and quantumly entangled multiverse, these also go a long way. Thank you.